Military history often celebrates the firepower that delivers the final blow, while completely ignoring the logistical miracles that made it possible. In April 1982, when the Falklands War erupted, the Royal Air Force faced what seemed to be an impossible mission. The objective was to strike the runway at Port Stanley, deep in the South Atlantic, from Wide Awake Airfield on Ascension Island. That meant executing a round-trip flight of 8,000 miles across open ocean, lasting nearly 16 hours. To this day, the Avro Vulcan bomber is remembered as the primary weapon of Operation Black Buck. However, official defense records confirm a staggering logistical truth. To enable a single Vulcan B-2 to drop 21 1,000-pound bombs on its target, the Royal Air Force had to mobilize 11 Handley Victor K-2 aerial refueling tankers and burn over 100,000 imperial gallons of aviation fuel in a single sortie. Without these tankers, the mission was physically impossible. The Vulcan had an unrefueled combat radius of roughly 2,600 miles, meaning it would run out of fuel long before even reaching the halfway mark. Across the entire 1982 campaign, the Victor K-2 fleet conducted more than 600 operational sorties, logging nearly 3,000 flight hours to keep British aircraft airborne. The Victor was not merely a support platform. It served as the irreplaceable backbone of Britain's long-range strike capability. Before we go on, do you believe the unsung logistics crews deserve equal credit alongside the combat pilots? And tell me where you are watching from. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss our deep dive defense analyses. To understand how this aircraft achieved such an unprecedented feat, we must look at its revolutionary aerodynamic design. The Handley Victor originally entered service as a strategic nuclear bomber during the Cold War. It featured a distinctive crescent wing design with 3 distinct sweep angles along each wing, transitioning from 52 degrees at the root to 44 degrees at the midspan and 35 degrees at the tips. This advanced configuration delayed high-speed shock waves and allowed the aircraft to achieve cruising speeds of Mach 0.92 at altitudes exceeding 50,000 feet. Powering the Victor K-2 were 4 Rolls-Royce Conway RCO-17 Mark 201 turbofan engines, each generating 20,600 pounds of thrust. This massive power output enabled the tanker to achieve a maximum takeoff weight of 223,000 pounds, a vital capability when lifting off from the narrow, heat-rippled 10,000-foot runway at Ascension Island. Following the early retirement of the Vickers Valiant fleet due to wing fatigue in the 1960s, the Royal Air Force converted 30 Victor bombers into dedicated tankers. The Victor K-2 was fitted with a versatile 3-point hose and drogue aerial refueling system. This included a central Mark 17 hose drum unit capable of transferring up to 5,000 pounds of aviation fuel per minute to large aircraft, alongside 2 wing-mounted Mark 20 pods capable of delivering 1,500 pounds per minute to smaller tactical jets. Unlike conventional commercial airliner conversions, the Victor K-2 retained the high-speed flight envelope and high-altitude cruising capability of a frontline combat jet. This unique combination made it the only tanker platform in the Western arsenal capable of keeping pace with high-performance bombers and maritime patrol aircraft across the remote expanses of the Atlantic. The true test of the Victor K-2 came on the night of April 30th, 1982, during the launch of Operation Black Buck 1. At 23:50 hours, 11 Victor K-2 tankers and 2 Vulcan B-2 bombers took off into the pitch-black Atlantic sky under strict radio silence. The operation relied on a complex refueling daisy chain, where tankers refueled each other in stages before returning to base. As the formation pressed south through severe storm turbulence, catastrophe struck. Flight Lieutenant Steve Biglands, piloting the primary Victor tanker XH-669, suffered a catastrophic probe failure due to violent atmospheric buffeting while attempting to take on fuel. This left the primary tanker unable to receive fuel for the final critical transfer to the Vulcan. In an instant, squadron leader Bob Tuxford, flying Victor Serial XL-189, had to make a life-or-death tactical decision. Tuxford reversed the plan, taking on all remaining fuel from Bigland's damaged tanker. He then pushed his own Victor far beyond the planned point of no return into hostile airspace. 400 miles north of the target, Tuxford successfully delivered the final 29,000 pounds of aviation fuel to Vulcan XM-607, ensuring it had enough range to strike the runway at Port Stanley. But this heroic action left Victor XL-189 critically short of fuel for the return leg. Calculating that his aircraft was at least 6,000 pounds of fuel deficit to reach safety, Tuxford turned north toward Ascension Island with fuel gauges rapidly dropping to zero. At the final critical moment, an emergency Victor tanker scrambled from Ascension Island intercepted XL-189 over the ocean, pumping vital fuel when Tuxford aircraft had less than 15 minutes of flight time remaining, completing one of the most perilous aerial refueling operations in aviation history. The successful strike on Port Stanley delivered a strategic shockwave that far exceeded the physical damage to the runway. While only a single 21-bomb salvo struck the target, the demonstrated ability of the Royal Air Force to strike across an 8,000-mile corridor forced Argentine commanders to withdraw their elite Mirage 3 interceptor squadrons back to the mainland to defend Buenos Aires. This single operational pivot drastically reduced the aerial threat against the British Naval Task Force operating around the islands. Yet this operational triumph exacted a heavy toll on the Victor fleet. Operating continuously at maximum overload gross weight in hot equatorial temperatures caused severe structural fatigue across the airframes. Following the conflict, detailed engineering inspections revealed rapid fatigue wing cracking, which ultimately accelerated the retirement of the type in 1993 after serving with distinction during Operation Granby in the Gulf War. The historical legacy of the Handley Page Victor K-2 reshaped modern air power doctrine. It proved conclusively that while advanced bombers and precision weapons capture headlines, operational reach and strategic deterrence are fundamentally governed by the logistics of aerial refueling. Without the high speed, high-altitude endurance of the Victor and the remarkable bravery of crews like Bob Tuxford, the longest bombing mission of its era would have ended in disaster. As modern military aviation increasingly prioritizes stealth and hypersonic weapons for vast maritime theaters like the Indo-Pacific, tanker vulnerability remains a critical concern. Do you think modern stealth combat aircraft can truly operate in large-scale contested airspace without heavily relying on legacy-style tanker logistics? Share your analysis in the comments below.